Well, I'm with Javier Hidalgo from Bodegas Hidalgo, Sherry House, a very famous sherry house. Javier tells me he's the 8th generation of the family business, so that's something quite special. Do you have a son who's going to become the 9th generation?
I have a son, but he's now looking for a job.
So a proper job.
A proper job.
Yes. Oh well, like many people, he'll probably end up drifting back into alcohol, into wine and whatever. I mean, sherry is a very interesting subject because there are a lot of people who don't know much about sherry. There's been a perception in this country over the years that sherry's an old lady's drink and that sort of thing, and it's still suffering a little bit from that. Although specialist wine merchants like ourselves have now got a really thorough, interesting range of sherry, and I'm discovering how good sherry is with food. In fact, particularly this first wine that we're about to try. So, I mean, how do you see sherry in the marketplace at the moment?
Well, yes, you're very right to say that there's a kind of old-fashioned idea about what sherry is. People think of, majority of people in this country thinks of sherry like brownie, sticky, and sweety. And
which of course you have one.
We have some of those,
yeah.
But the sherry consumed in Spain is always light and dry, and especially dry because our country is warm enough not to need any sweet drinks. Yes, we always combine sherry with food. Forget about this ridiculous idea of the British to drink sherry in this kind of little glasses and just standing up before lunch when you are absolutely starving for it. So forget that. You be generous and you produce sherry in big portions and with food, please, because every single style of sherry has a good dish to match with,
yes.
to pair with.
Of course, sherry is quite strong. I mean, we're talking 17 to 20%.
No, this is 15.
That's 15.
This is
17,
yeah. 17, this is 18,
18,
this is probably 21.
Yeah.
The maximum allowed level of alcohol, but this is a very old palo cortado which being concentrate alcohol by losing water by evaporation. But you nowadays have a lot of still wines like Chardonnays and red wines which are 14, 15 alcohol. So it's not a great difference.
Look, it's still quite alcoholic. You would have to pour. Yes, you have to be a little bit careful how much sherry you drank. But anyway, let's not get too involved in that. I think what we might do is just go through the different styles that you've got here today to show us.
Yes.
And perhaps you could tell us, how sherry is made and how you arrive at the different styles.
Okay.
So let's start with the Manzanilla.
Yes. To begin with, you have to know that sherry is not a vintage wine.
That's
it's
right.
It's never been a vintage wine. Well, there are small exceptions. But the whole sherry is made by blending very many different cosechas. So in one glass you may have up to 60 cosechas represented. It may be here a molecular that come from my great-grandfather's time,
right,
and a molecular that come from 5 years ago. But the whole thing is a uniform product, so we don't rely on a year. We always.
And this is called the
Solera
system.
Solera system. So the cherry is always in cask until the moment it's going to be consumed. Then it's bottled and sent to the market. But during the time it is in cask, there's a continuous blending. This lot of cask in the cellar, in the bodega, are divided into criaderas, which are different stages of maturation. So you have the first criadera, the second criadera, the third criadera. The final stage from where you take the wine to be bottled and consumed is called solera. So you take the wine from there, and the gap that you make in the solera, you refill with the first criadera. And the first criadera is refilled by the second criadera, and the second by the third, and the third by the fourth. So the last criadera is refilled with the wine coming from the vineyards, the young wine coming from the vineyard. So that means that it's a continuous blend. And at the end of the day, what you obtain is a uniform product which may have an average age, but not a vintage. So Manzanilla is the most delicate, the most fresh. probably the most versatile of all the sherries, and is probably the youngest style you can drink. And Manzanilla has a particularity that it can only be produced in a town within the whole sherry district. So you, in the whole sherry district, you produce a whole range of sherries. But there's one called Manzanilla that needs to be produced in one of the towns, which is Sanlúcar. Sanlúcar is by the mouth of a river overlooking the estuary, and has a very special microclimate, more humid and less cold and less hot than the rest of the area. So that allows the production of Manzanilla. Any authentic Manzanilla, any true Manzanilla must come from Sanlúcar.
So it's the driest form of sherry.
It's the driest form of sherry.
And it has this sort of salty sort of overtone.
Yeah, that's why it's called Manzanilla, because Manzanilla is Spanish for chamomile.
Okay.
So the saltiness of the chamomile,
right.
saltiness of bitterness of the chamomile,
and
you find here in the Manzanilla. But first of all, in the nose, a Manzanilla should be like the seaside. I mean, when you walk on the sea side in the morning and you have all these aromas from the seaweeds, the iodium from the sea air, the shellfish. This is the kind of nose that the Manzanilla should have. And then in the mouth you have the saltiness and the bitterness. This is it.
Well, we're a long way from the sea here in Oxford, so I don't walk the sea every morning, but I know what you mean.
But you still live in an island.
I still live in an island, correct. So do you want to give me a sort of little tasting note on that? And what would you drink that with? What food do you say it's best with?
The obvious combination is seafood. Things like oysters or prawns, or even a rock fish on the grill, or fried fish. It goes very, very, very well. But there are many other things. For example, olives, ham, cheese, provided it's not a very old mature cheese. Things like chips, potatoes, chips.
Yeah.
Goes very well with Manzanilla.
Oh, right.
Your fish and chips will go perfectly well with a glass of Manzanilla.
Yes, preferably with and not on the chips. Yes, that's interesting. I mean, but we do have a problem educating people to this idea that sherry should be drunk with food. And that's the job, I suppose, of all of us in the wine trade, to try and get out there and show people and tell them about it. And certainly we've found, I think recently, that sherry sales here have increased enormously, partly because of awareness. We are making people aware that sherry is a great drink, and we have a nice range, and we're now getting a reputation for having a good cross-section range. Because most wine shops you go into in this country, you'll be lucky to find 2 or 3 sherries, and they'll be at the cheaper end.
Yeah,
so,
all the cherries have a dish to match with. I mean, and in the case of Manzanilla, there's so many things you can pair with it. Asparagus, which are very difficult to
find anything to go with asparagus.
Manzanilla especially, and artichokes, which is the other difficult thing, will do well. A salad, a Caesar salad, will go very well with a glass of Manzanilla.
Yes, I can well imagine this. We put this on at a wine tasting last year in Oxford, and it was the standout drink of the whole tasting for me. Absolutely delicious. Perhaps we'll move on